All right, this one. Actually, I want to check out this one first.
Listen closely.
America right now comes
to
to
what this
Tanzania,
man
This is
is
5 minutes
comes to
long.
Ghana.
All right, let's do this.
Unfortunately,
Listen closely.
America right now comes
to
to
what this
Tanzania,
man is saying.
comes to Ghana, comes to Zambia.
So a little context behind this clip before we watch it is this guy from Africa. I don't remember which country specifically he's from. But he's talking about his relations with America versus his relationship with other countries and the outlook of America and how they kind of think about things versus how other countries think about things. And this is a very interesting kind of perspective in reference to international relations that we definitely need to consider moving forward.
Listen closely.
America right now comes
to
to
what this
Tanzania,
man is saying.
comes to Ghana, comes to Zambia with 16 million. And guess what? 16 million only for Zambia. The 16 million, ask me, what is it for?
What is it for?
For human rights.
What is that background music? They're like playing rock and roll in the background. What do we do? So he's saying that America comes to, he said Zambia with $16 million, offering $16 million.
With 16 million. And guess what? 16 million only for Zambia. The 16 million, ask me, what is it for?
What is it for?
For human rights.
Human rights.
Across the river, China and Russia coming to South Africa. Ask me for what?
For what?
For a military training and skills sharing of security.
I think people are starting to get lost because America is in such a beneficial situation, considering that we have, our most people's standard of living, even though the middle class is shrinking, is way better than most of the world, right? So the stuff that we are concerned about, for the most part, are stupid humanitarian shit, like the hey man, mental. I don't want to discount it, but in reference to the broad spectrum of what is going on in the world, something like the LGBTQ stuff, something like certain like mental illness issues, something like obesity, something like all these self identity expression stuff, all that is irrelevant to most of the world. Most of the world does not care. Most of the world is trying to make sure that they are standing on their own 2 feet as a country. They're having enough resources for their people. People are not starving. People are not dying of thirst. People are not dying from disease. They're trying to make sure that they are a strong enough country for other countries to respect them. Like America is like we are the top, of course. So it makes sense that we don't have a lot of these issues. So now we start focusing on stuff that really inherently does not matter. It doesn't. So with that all said, it would be more beneficial for America to focus on like improving instead of these stupid issues that shouldn't really matter in the first place. But now we are self delusion and our kind of conceited nature as Americans think that the issues we're trying to solve is issues that all the rest of the countries must be struggling with, right? So that's kind of what he's speaking on in this clip.
So the Americans are more interested in a transgender, homosexual agenda around the world. They will invest their money and give you money to protect human rights. Russia and China are coming with weapons and militarization strategies so that we can protect ourselves. So I want to say this very loud and clear to the Americans. Continue on your transgender agenda. Stay there. Leave us to do politics on the other side. Because what we need right now is not a minority human rights activation. What we need is a societal transformation.
That's such a powerful thing to say because at the end of the day, a lot of the situation that we try to focus on is the minority of the population. Like even in America, with we have a lot of things that we benefit from. And we're a great country and all that stuff. We have bigger issues we probably should still be focusing on, right? We can make a lot of things better. Like our education system is failing in terms of a lot our the average America in terms of intelligence has fallen behind a lot of countries in terms of the different educational curriculum, right? Sure, we have advanced, our top ones are still top ones, but the average one is failing, right? We still have an issue with the disproportionality of these minority communities, especially black people, trying to, you know, equate themselves to the rest of society. I mean, other races that come to America are outdoing black people. We got to fix that issue, right? There's the homeless problem we have in America. We got to fix that issue, right? And the increase of gun violence is an issue we should fix. Not the aspect of, okay, let's get rid of all guns. No, let's look at the nuance of every situation and see what solutions we can come up with. The problem is that we are so focused on some of the dumbest stuff, and our solutions are some of the most basic and either extreme solutions that we aren't doing anything productive. And then other countries are looking at us, okay, we're still the superpower, we're still big brother, we're still Papa Dad, but it doesn't really matter because the things we care about is stuff that other countries just don't care. They don't care about the stuff that we care about right now. It's insane. It's insane. It's insane.
And for you as Americans to think that we really envy that when you have an anti-lesbian, anti-gay, LGBT principle, then tourists would drop. Let me correct that once and for all, Sbu. And cut and clip this, and it must be loud and clear. Are you saying to me that all the tourists are gay? And when you hear that this is a non-gay zone, tourism will suffer? Question number one. Question number two. Are you saying that we don't have a right to expressing ourselves as Africans? Question number three. If democracy means majority rules and majority votes against a principle, then why won't you allow that to become law? Are you saying the minority must manage the majority or the majority must manage the minority? Then if that whole ideology is wrong, then take democracy in a nice black dustbin bag and throw it outside. Because what you are telling us is by the people, for the people, with the people, and all those slogans you hear, what democracy represents. If we are 10 in the room and 9 people say no, and one person says yes, democracy says you go with the majority. So if we say we want to make Africa democratic, and the demographics of our democracy says no, then why do you philosophically want to manipulate the will of the majority to favor the will of the minority? Then this is where it really gets confusing to me.
That is such an interesting question, right? Democracy is all about voting, and at the end of the day, inherently, should be going by the will of the majority of the people, right? Now, what makes this question interesting is, should we discount the minority? Because in America, right, the majority, let's say like 70% of Americans say that they don't give a two shits about these issues. And then like 10% here and there from different, extremes and different sides or whatever. But then there's like this 5% that really cares about this issue. And it's like they're suffering because of how much this issue is important to them. That 5% in terms of the totality of America could be something like a couple million people. So then the question is, like, should we discount the minority? That's why I think the importance of nuance is so valuable, right? You need to really look at the parameters of what is going on. Adhere to the will of the majority, 100%, but try to find some way to incorporate things that the minority wants in a manner that is still not against the majority's needs. It's hard to kind of figure that out, of course, but the basis should always be the will of the people, the will of the majority. That should always be the foundation, and then you can start wiggling things, right? You can start, finding the different avenues to kind of support different sections of people. Because obviously you're going to want to support the minority of rich people who own more than half of our money. So you're going to have a section to support them. You're going to have a section to support the ones that can't support themselves, right? So that is how things should be. But as we know, that's not how things are.
Because you're selling me one thing on one. I understand this democracy because it is based on the principle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When it comes to practice, no, you can't practice it like that. Then what do you want? Do you want democracy? You want anarchy? You want indigenous governing systems? You want meritocracy? Maybe let's find another way of governing ourselves. But the ideology of democracy being founded on majority rule does not count. Because the rule that runs the South African constitution right now is not majority count. I will go on record for being on your show and saying it loud and clear without mixing words. Put 100 people on an island and lock them away from everybody. Put 100 people on an island who are heterosexual. Those are homosexual. Come back after 50 or 20 or 30 years. On that island, you'll find graves with no living being there. On this island, you'll find 10,000 people growing and exploring and moving. So having said that, we as a society, particularly as African society, we also as traditional people have a right to our self-preservation and continuity as a people. Alternative lifestyles must be practiced where they must be practiced, but the main agenda of societal drive must be left to the right, because even those that are on the left come from the right. I don't know if that makes sense to you. The conversation that we had for the same.
Before he goes into this, I think the importance in terms of what that circumstance illustrated is that at the end of the day, you know, obviously gay people can live the way they want to live. They got to live their truth, right? But there needs to be a realization that the society should never be completely gay, because that'll be the end of humanity for obvious reasons, because biologically male and female cause baby, continues reproduction. We know that. The minority of people are homosexual. The minority of people are trans. These are a small minority of the totality of the human population. The human population, and at the end of the day, the standard should always be biological male, biological female, have kids, move on. That's just biology. That's just human life. That's not discrimination. That's not transphobic. That's not homophobic. That should be humanity's standard. Unless something crazy happens that completely corrupts human biology. As of right now, based on how nature goes, that's the human standard. But obviously we don't want to deny people, but there needs to be a realization of what the standard it will always be and should always be. Period.
Marriages was very tricky for me because it did not seek to address the core issue. Are we saying this is what the people want? Or are we saying this is what the international community wants? Point number one. Point number two, in the event that I decide as a heterosexual that I want to bring up my children in a heterosexual way, why does the homosexual want to stand on the path of my own children and how I want to institutionalize them, and then pollute them with what they want? If you want to pollute these children, make your own. Why come to the heterosexual and then dictate the ways of the homosexual? So who has got the right this time? Are you saying the rights rely with the homosexual, or the rights?
I think for the most part, I think most rational people agree that a lot of these LGBTQ and all that stuff, when it comes to children, is stupid. Like, let children grow up the way they want. Let the parents let them grow up the way they want. Inherently, when they grow up, they should be growing up naturally on how humans should grow up in terms of what their purpose is. However, based on if they innately wanted to deviate from that purpose when they reach 18 or something, because of some inner conflict or some inner, way of life, if that's the case, then that's the case. You could do what you could do, but you can't guarantee things will happen the way they happen, right? For example, right, you want to raise your child and you want them to be a football player, but they end up being a basketball player, right? So there's no guarantee that your teaching is gonna produce a certain result because humans are malleable, they're flexible, they constantly kind of adapt to their circumstance and their environment. You just got to pay attention to what that environment is. So when it comes down to kids, raise them how you want, raise them how humans should be raised for the most part, based on the standard of being a human. And if they change, if they have a trans identity, or if they want to be gay or anything like that, then that's fine, right? That should be fine. That's their choice. That's their truth. You raise them how they raise, and they ended up that way because that's who they are. You can't deny who they are, right? So I think people need to realize on both occasions that you can't stop someone from being who they are, but you can't do the stupid stuff of like trying to give kids the whole freedom to let them grow up however they want based on, and let anything they say be a matter of truth on who they are. Like that, leave it to the parents, even if I think the parents are not parenting right, leave it to them. There's a line though. If they cross that line, then child services should come in. So that's more
the balance need to be found right there, that every citizen has got the right to life and decide how they want to run their lives and how they want to bring up their children, etc. And so ultimately we might end up with an Urania. Let's create a state where this can happen there, and those who want to live in this other space, they can move into that space, and we are free to choose to change.
It's a very deeper conversation,
But
and also especially
and we're giving it the time it demands. We're giving it the depth of thought that it demands, so that in the midst of just saying human rights, we don't become emotional over protect gay rights, protect heterosexual rights. Because when you protect homosexual rights, you also need to become respectful of the heterosexual. And when you're promoting heterosexual, you also need to protect the homosexual.
Listen closely.
America
Very
right now comes from
What this
Tanzania.
man is saying.
very interesting perspective. I'm gonna have to use a bathroom real quick.